Joining us now via Skype is Mr. Paul Dong, Chief Executive Officer of sports business company EI Asia. Paul, it's good to have you with us on China 24. Now, the Chinese Super League clubs have been spending huge on international players in recent years. So do you think this new cap could possibly cause an exodus of international players or put off new players from signing?
Yes, indeed, the Chinese Professional Soccer League has been actually one of the biggest money spenders, challenging some European powerhouses when chasing some very expensive players over the past decade. And the significantly lower capping levels may sound abrupt or blunt to those who don't follow Chinese football so closely. But actually, they are not so new and were consulted and negotiated on among clubs and some other stakeholders for a couple of years already. And very similar rules were first released a year ago in order to avoid a kind of hard landing. And if some parties still, sound stunned or complain about getting caught without enough buffer or reminder, it's more due to kind of local business culture, not taking very seriously the new rules or betting or taking chances on flexibilities. And in fact, flexibilities directly attached to the new rule are clearly stating that for those contracts with very expensive foreign players that are already existing and ongoing, the clubs now can split the original contract and pay off the remaining balance, outside of the capped level before the end of 2023. And of course, interest would be counted. So there are flexibilities or room for flexibility being adopted. And so I think, but basically the biggest picture for most clubs, including those very, very wealthy clubs who would prefer to spend money, losing money, and the biggest issue are, from now on, they need to tell their agents, all right, we need to start looking for some relatively less expensive foreign players starting next season. And the biggest headache would be, for some clubs, there are a number of so-called naturalized foreign players. They are foreign citizens, and they are representing the Chinese national team and also as no longer as foreign imports. How about these players? They need to be capped by a standard Chinese player or as an imported foreign player, and they are already paid very high. And how can they be treated so that they can stay inside their contract? So these are the challenges.
Well, conversely, then, do you think this is good news for local players? Because there still seems to be a huge gap between the cap for foreign players and local ones, isn't there?
Yes, indeed. For a roster or a team to stay together in a relatively healthy, atmosphere or culture, the gap between foreign imports and their pay shouldn't be, too much more than like a fraction of their pay for a local player. But actually, what actually happened over the last few years is that their higher pay, their very expensive pay, helped raise the pay on local Chinese players as well. That's why in this whole set of new rules, the CFA, Chinese Football Association, also adopted capping levels, restricting too much pay on local players as well. And actually, fans complain, among Chinese fans, the complaint about the pay are not so much about the foreign players. They complain about being overpaid, for Chinese local players. They are not satisfied with the performance of the Chinese local players. So this is not a relief for the club owners to, use the balance they saved to help pay the local players better. I think the picture is all players need to lower their pay.
Yeah, this is a big debate everywhere, isn't it? How much should footballers be getting? Some people think it's an obscene amount that some are being paid. Well, just lastly and quickly, Paul, what are your thoughts overall then on the new rules for growth in the long term?
Well, we don't expect any growth. well, growth means spending, all right? The budget, the significant growth year by year in the budget will slow down or even lower from next season on. But in terms of business, the income doesn't necessarily decrease, doesn't necessarily, slow down. It may generate more healthy income for the clubs because, from the very beginning for Chinese Football Association to create this professional league, there was zero interest of creating or running a money-losing business. It should be for the mid to long-term objective to create money-making business. So you cannot treat soccer in China like a unicorn that eventually will create automatic money. It's not like that. You have to, look at the reality very seriously that football in China will take longer time to grow very steadily and gradually. And the fact is, except for a couple of very wealthy clubs who rely on their own cash cows from real estate development and other big money-making businesses, most smaller clubs cannot sustain anymore for even one season. Some of them are prepared to abandon, the top league notch so that they can lower to, the smaller leagues to save their spending. So this cannot be postponed anymore. This is about financial health and the long-term, healthy development of Chinese football.
Right. Well, thank you so much. It's great speaking to you, Paul. Paul Dong, with Chief
you.
Executive Officer of
My pleasure.
EI Asia. Thank you.